Shalom, 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 brothers and sisters. I'm Pastor Charles Matondo. Today I'm here to share with you a series of teaching that I'm starting from now. That series is concerning the riches of grace. As we know that when you read the Bible is saying we are saved by grace through faith. That's why we have to understand that salvation we got by grace. What is grace? But let us read first where this revelation of the riches of grace came from. I'm gonna go with you in the book of Ephesians chapter. Get Ephesians chapter 1 verse 7. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace. That's the place where I get this title, the riches of the grace. When we talk about the riches, what riches mean? Riches mean simple, the abundance of resources. And the word riches can mean too a great quantity of valuable. That means when you have something and you have it more and more again, that's the word rich can be used. And when we talk about grace, this is very important for us to understand as a church today. Because you're going to see this word grace in many verses in the Bible. Grace is not only in the New Testament, in the New Covenant. But I'm going to go with the word grace in the Old Testament and they bring it to the New Testament. But the word grace is a word that we can find in the Greek and in the Hebrew. In the Greek, the word grace means charis. The word charis is in the similar word in Greek, what they call charisma. Because the word charisma means gifts. And the word grace in Greek as a charis means favor. Or other place means gifts. And the word charis, it's also in the full meaning, it's the unmerited favor, undeserved favor. When the Bible says we are saved by grace, it means we are saved by unmerited favor. That's not your work, not my work, not your performance, not my performance. It is a favor we have received from God. Because charis means unmerited favor, undeserved favor. You and me, we did not deserve to be blessed or to be saved. But by favor of God, by the favor that today we are saved. And the word grace in Hebrew, it means chain. Chain. The word chain has the same meaning with charis in Greek. It means favor. When the Bible says someone found grace, it means the favored one. The favored one. And then let's us go now. The word grace, you're going to find it in the Bible many places. But for us to understand it, we have to follow the context where that word is used. Because the word grace doesn't mean only gift, doesn't mean only favor. In other place, that word has a different meaning. It's like a beauty. In the book of Solomon, they use the word grace, but in the other version, for our understanding, they use the word beauty. And the word grace can be used as the calling in the ministry, a calling in a work. but they use the word grace. When you are gifted in the calling, they can use the word grace there. But we're not going to talk about the different meaning of grace, because we're going to focus our mind in the riches of grace. That means the unmerited favor that God uses to save us, to bless us. And the word grace, when you find it in the Bible, the first place it's written in the book of Genesis chapter 6. In the story of Noah. But I'm not going to start there. I have to go back again. The word grace is not written in Genesis 1 or 2. But grace is there in Genesis 1. Because we're going to understand the creation. When God started to create, he created in 6 days. And in the seventh day, God rested. But the amazing thing there for us to understand, when you read Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, you're going to see God started the creation from the first day to the 6th day. But on the first day to the 5th day, God created everything we see. Water, fruits, animal, fish, oxygen, everything that we see, that we as a human being we use today as a food, as for the breathing, all these things were created in 5 days. And the 6th day, God came to create a man. But the question is, when we follow the story of the creation of God, the priority of God is a man. The man is the first priority of God to create for the creation. But God came to create a man in the last day before him to rest. Why? Because God was showing his grace, was moving by the grace. Because when the man came, he needed oxygen to breathe. He needed food. He needed animal to make a food to eat, a fish to make a food, vegetable, fruits. Imagine God created a man on the first day. There were no water to drink. There were no oxygen to breathe. There were no food to eat. Imagine how a man could survive or live. And from there, man, I think, gonna pray to God, God, I need this urgently. But God knew that. God made a provision. Another way I can say it, God anticipates the man. Because God knew what the man gonna need. What the man need for him to live. And God anticipated a human being. He has created even the oxygen that we have to breathe with. God has created it before the man's existence. God has created fish because God knew we're going to need a fish to eat. We're going to need an animal as a meat, vegetable. God knew that we're going to need this, and God has anticipated our need. That's the grace, because the grace is the anticipation of God for the human need. Or other way, we can say about the grace is the provision of God for the human being. God has made everything. That's why we see grace there. And another thing I can talk about the grace is God spoke in Genesis chapter 3 verse 15 when a man sinned, and God spoke to the serpent. He said to the serpent, the same lady, the same woman that you are deceived, that woman is going to give a birth to a son, and that son will crush your head. That means the sin came, and the sin is going to touch every human being in the world. And God has anticipated the human being in their sin. You and me, we were not born yet, But God said, I'm gonna send my son who's gonna give you the solution of the sin that the man has committed. That's the anticipation. Before you and me to be born, God already sent Jesus. That the grace you are talking about, the anticipation of God for human being. That's why we have to come to the point to understand grace is the love of God. Let me say it this way. Grace is the act of the loving God. But when we move from Genesis 1, Genesis 2, 3, and we're going to move to Genesis chapter 6, from there we're going to find God speaking to Noah. Look at the Bible, Genesis 6 verse 8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Noah found grace. Noah found favor. Noah was favored. Because the question is, why only Noah? The answer, because he was favored. Not because he was better to anybody. Because I'm going to explain you this. Even Noah was a sinner, like other people. Because after Adam's sin, every creature, every human was born from dad and mom, was born with the nature of sin. From there, a human being was a sinner. And Noah was a sinner. But why Noah and his wife and his three children and three sister-in-law, they were saved. 8 people were saved in Noah's family. Because the only thing we can find there that is amazing, Noah found grace. Noah was not perfect. Noah was not good above every human being was on earth. But he found grace. And the best thing to understand in grace, I'm going to explain that. Noah has accepted the grace of God. Because when God said to Noah, Noah, you found grace, I'm sending you to do this. Noah responded to the grace. You're going to understand this when I explain about this thing. Because faith is important as an important part for us to use to respond to God when God favoring us. That's the grace. Yeah, Noah found the grace, and we see the way the grace for the first time has been used in Genesis chapter 6. And to a human being that was under the sin and under the world, what was a confusion world, a troubled world, the world that was so bad and bad again. But Noah found a grace. Because Noah found a grace, because Noah was favored by God, Noah was saved. Not because he was good, I'm repeating myself, because he found grace. From there, we come to understand grace is very, very important act from the loving God for us to be connected with. Ephesians 2:8. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that's not of yourself, it is the gift of God. That's the grace. Yeah, that's why we have to understand grace is the instrument of God has used it to save a human being, because a human being was not able to save himself. But God has used what he called grace. And that grace is not a simple grace. We have received the riches of grace. When we speak about the riches of grace, we speak about the abundance of grace. That means every domain of our life, we have received the abundance. My friend, you have been saved already. You are saved not by your performance, but by the unmerited favor. You and me, in the nature that we were born with, we did not deserve to be saved. We did not deserve to be blessed by God. We don't deserve for God to come to live in us. But this is the unmerited favor. We did not deserve it. That's why the love of God by grace is unconditional. We have to understand that. Yeah, thank you so much to be there. That's the end of our first part. We're gonna continue the next parts next time again. God bless you. Bye bye.